Hey Nippers, it's me, Wild Neptune. Just got mint, so we're gonna go test her to see how she is. Let's go. So, here she is. Barely gear, not leveled, no skills, no collection item. Do I have a blue one? I think I have one of each. I have 2 rocket launchers. Okay, maybe I'll put that on. Don't know quite yet. Affection 1 literally just pulled her and put some gear on her, and that's really all. I don't really want to invest in her that much. We're not even sure if the next raid is even Iron Week. I mean, it has to be, right? Because we're getting like Iron characters here. We just reran Stellar Blade, like Eve is up at the moment, she's Iron. So if the next raid is not Iron Week, man, that is an extreme rug pull right there. But one of the reasons too, where I'm not going to invest heavily into her yet, is because there are other units too I still need to do. Like for me personally, Funny Soda is pretty high up there. Also considering actually normal Snow White. But then again too, I don't really have to like rock like pull on anything, so I don't have to reroll stats that much on mint, I don't think. So, you know, not that much investment, but I do want to make sure I have enough fodder to like get all that gear overloaded in the first place by the time raid actually gets here. So this testing will be a little bit scuffed, but I feel like a lot of players are not quite going to go all the way on mint quite yet. At least if you have a big enough roster where where you have options, I would say. Anyway, let's get to the testing. So, because Mint does have 2 modes, she has the one where she helps the sniper. I say 2 modes, but more like 2 buffs on the skill 2. One for piercing and one for explosion damage. We're going to start with the one for explosion damage, and we'll be testing her against a couple teams here. One of them will be the team with the crown. So this is probably going to be the overall electric team that will dish out the most damage for the most part, I would say. Now, this team somewhat is not reasonable to expect people to be running. Not that people won't have these units, a lot of people have all these units, but that a lot of these units will not be used together. Like, Anise, like these 3 will, usually, but then you have Arcana, Isabel, and Neo Neon will be run with the May Twins, and then Privity probably brings up the no, she doesn't, because you have 2 burst 3s, then you have 2 burst 2s, and then you have to have like your burst 1. So Privity won't even be on that team anyway. So yeah, a lot of these characters in ideal settings don't even run together. But because this is a test and we want to see big numbers, this is what we're going with right here. Over here, and we can start the fight. And because the fight itself is not very exciting, it's just a trading dummy. And by the way, as always, take these numbers with a grain of salt, right? The boss has no mechanics. I'm just on full auto right now, but we'll see the actual results screen right after this. Okay, here are the results. About 13.6 bill, and damage going out. Cinderella at 5, Neo Neon at about 4.5, Anise at 2.7-ish, and then Privity and Crown making up a bill by themselves. So what we're gonna do here is just gonna take out Crown and plug in Mint and see how she does. Obviously, she's not gonna do as well because she has no investment, and you know nobody's gonna say, like, nobody has been predicted that she would be better than Crown in any sense. But here we go, and I totally recognize that this team here again is not a team that is going to be probably used at all. You know, this one's just for fun, right? After this one, we will actually go over a couple of teams that I feel like she might actually see legitimate use in. But again, we'll have to see. So again, this is kind of dull. It's just a target dummy. So I'll show the results in just a moment here. Okay, here we are. 9.8-ish bill, and the results right here. So pretty standard drop off a little bit. About a bill less for Cinderella, a bill less for Neon Ace, with Mint and Privity combining for about half a bill or so. So actually, the numbers here, yeah, it is a pretty big drop off. I remember the crowd was fully invested and Crouch is a much better unit. I'll be honest, this isn't the worst thing I have seen. Now, to be fair, it is the support that's been replaced, and we have 3 damage dealers that are still fully geared and everything like that, plus Treasure Privity. So the effect of her wasn't going to be like humongous. Like I was not expecting a 50% drop off, but this is not awful. You know, this is workable if maybe you don't have Crown quite yet, and maybe Mint for something like this would be something pretty good if you're newer. Now, then again, if you're also newer, you also have much more to save for and to pull on in the future. So it's kind of a give and take there. So anyway, let's go now to maybe some teams that most players would actually use. All right, next up is a team that I think might actually see some usage with Mint, at least for the time being, as of the units right now. It is the Miranda comp. So you have traditional Miranda plus a CDR burst 1. This case will be Rouge. You can use another one, obviously. Siren will be popular overall. Just that my Siren does have more attack than everybody else on this team here, so I can't use her on my setup. Also, my setup here, it is Snow White, the heavy arms, that gets the crit buff most of the time. Occasionally, Ada gets it. Their attack is really, really close. And going into full burst, Ada actually has more attack, but in actual testing, it is Snow White that does get the buff. I don't know what's going on there, but you know. So normally this is a team that you have to manual, especially if Ada gets the highest attack. However, because you know it's Snow White heavy arms, and that doesn't really matter as much overall, I'm just gonna auto it. Yes, I'll lose some burst gen because you want to be spamming Ada's shot for the burst gen, but I can't be manualing this, you know, for every single test I do. I will go insane. So first up, we'll toss in Takana, and I understand that yeah, collab characters and everything like that, but like I said too, this is one of the teams that I do feel like she will be used on. So I'll touch Takana first, and then with Mint, and maybe with someone like Bunny A2. Anyway, I will see you in just a few moments here. Alright, and here we go. Pretty scuffed, but you see right here, 3.55 from Snow White, you know, about 800 from Ada. Takana doing a little bit of decent damage too. So about 5.4 bill is the mark. So obviously not great, but we didn't do this optimally anyway here at all. So we touch him a couple here. Because we do have the piercing, the first one we want to do is, I believe, one of the stronger pierce characters, and that's going to be with Bunny Aid. Now, Bunny Aid here has traditionally no investment. In fact, we actually had to replace this right here and do that one. I had to make sure I'll put it back on Mint after this. She has no skills at all. She does have a doll, a blue doll, equipped, so a little bit of stats, but obviously not that many. So this is going to be, I think, a more, maybe not more reasonable, but a test people might do also. So we'll just see how this team does, and then we'll do with Mint, and we'll compare these two. Again, like gear-wise and everything, I feel like a fairer. Alright, we're back. And about the same, actually. Pretty good, because Bunny 8 has no investment at all. But to be expected, because if it was Ada that got the buff, they're talking about to be doing a lot more. But since it is Snow White, she's getting the buff here. So yeah, her damage does definitely increases. So does, I guess, Rouge's a little bit too. So yeah, pretty similar. So about 3.25, sorry, 5.25 is going to be the mark we want to reach with Mint. So all we're going to do here is we're going to take out Bunny Aid, and we're going to find Mint. She's somewhere. Here she is. I do have to flop this, unfortunately, because I don't have any extra supporting gear besides that one. There we go. Oh, also, I don't think my Bunny Aid had a cube on. Mint does, though, so there might be a little bit of discrepancy there overall, but that it should be that bad overall. Um, no. Even though I do know Bunny 8 does need some ammo lines and the like, where, I don't want to rerun this. So, anyway, I'll see you in just a moment. Oh, okay. So, 5.35. About the same, actually, like a little bit more. Also, I actually swapped Ada and Snow White, because even though Snow White obviously doing more damage, I did it this way because, as we know, Mint's first burst, she will be in her HP form, and we want to make it so that we align the attacking form with Snow White's burst. So that's why it's set up this way. I believe this gives the most DPS overall. I ran a test the other way, and the damage was a little bit lower. I think maybe if you like control your burst differently, maybe there's a manual control. You can do a couple of other things also. But at least for this auto test, this seems to be the ideal way to do it. But yeah, this is definitely within the margin of error though, in terms of like her versus Bunny Aid. Remember too that Bunny Aid did have the doll, but not the cube. So that is also something that is going to be, maybe evened out a little bit there, but about the same. So definitely, at least for the Miranda comp here, looking to be pretty similar. I do want to test out one more team though. So here we have a Pierce team. Obviously, a lot of people here on the last slot will be using Modernia, who I do have built up a bit, but I don't think it's reasonable where, this is a team that was kind of on its last leg already. It was the worst performing team in the last 5 solo raid, and until we get a um a 5-week solo raid that has a core, it's these teams it's kind of like dead in the water. So this is more of just for fun. Obviously, too, a lot of times too here you would use like Dekiller Wipe, but I reset mine. So we put in Siren just for the time being. Obviously, for 5-week Grave is going to be pretty good. However, my Grave is semi-built, so we will not be using her right now because you have a couple more tests I want to do after this one. So we will be starting with Bunny Aid. I have to do this one more time or so. Go. And this time I will put a cube on her. Pop in. Off. There. And yeah, just see how this is. Now again, normally this is a team that I would have to manual because of Alice, because I'm really, really lazy right now. I'm not going to do that, so I'll see you in just a moment. Alright, so here we are, 5.2, again, not really trying here. I also find it really, really funny that it's Mihara who's not really benefiting at all from anything that gets the most damage on the team, but sure, but yeah, numbers here. Alice 1.67, Asuka 1.2-ish, Mihara 1.7. Again, not really crazy. Actually, pretty bad, honestly. But it was kind of to be expected with this team. This is one that some players might still use. I don't know, right? It really depends. But like I said, all we can do here is swap out this with Mint. If I can find her. Here she is. I will go here. I will. No, she always has a cube. It's just a gear, right? So once again, go, and we will start. And on this team, it would be the Alice that gets the buff, and because she did do more damage overall, we will just swap these two out like this, so that she does get the attack buff from Mint. But anyway, let's get started with this one. And again, I will see you in a moment. Okay, so here are the results. It is a little bit lower, and I think that's actually to be expected. Obviously, we have some damage numbers over here. Now, the reason why it's a little bit lower is because the aid was buffing both Asuka and Alice. And this is relevant because even though the buffs are lower, she's doing both of them, right? And Mint only buffs really one of them during the full burst, which will, be the majority of what the damage is going to be. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like Mint is going to be really, really good with a solo carry DPS, which means there is one more team you have to try. Okay, so the Summer and Nice Electric team, the one that uses Maiden, has struggled to really find a decent burst 2 in a bit now. So we're using this setup right here, which again is not always gonna be reasonable. Like a lot of the times, you're not gonna be running either Neon or Nice with this setup here. But because this is a test, this is what we can do right now. So yeah, so the again, like this team doesn't really have a ton of options for the first two that are like, you know, good, I would say. Like I don't know, like you put in Rosanna, right? You have Mari, who I think for Electric Week is an option that you have. Some people will be running things like Nayuta in this also. So yeah, I mean you just look at this and you're like, oh, what are we even gonna use at all right here, right? Like there's no real piercing to do it with your aid or something like that. Maybe if you're running something like Scarlet, which again was one of the worst performing teams of the Electric Raid, you are not going to be using Trina. So in this case, we will be just be putting in the Mari. Now my Mari is built, so she does have a little bit of an advantage here. I say built, she's like semi-built, right? But there will be somewhat of a discrepancy between her and anything else. But let's just run through this, see how it does, and then I will get back to you. So results, about 11 bill. Here are the numbers right here. So in the Star with 2.6, Summer with 2.2-ish, Neon 4.7-ish, then Mari and Neon there. Remember, Mari, not the best pick ever, but like I said, this is a team that somewhat struggles to find a good burst too. So what we can do here, obviously, is just put in Mint there. Don't get up and everything. Okay, that's fine. Also, again, we'll swap this so that the Neon gets the hacking buff, and we will go into it. Alright, so 9.2, so a little bit lower, but to be expected because remember the Mari had investment and the Mint doesn't. So here are the stats, and I do think with same investment in Mint, her damage actually gets higher than Mari, definitely like overall in terms of her team. Now the problem here though is that are you really going to use this team with this, right? Because this is like almost the best case scenario as we have explosion damage, explosion, right? It's just a perfect setup for Mint. And are you really going to be using any star on this team, or do you want to use her with, your Cinderella, what do you call it, Arcana, Isabel team? Are you really going to be using Neon on this team, or are you going to be using her with Librario and Maids? Right? That's the thing, right? This is a team that I would see is not quite reasonable to have, at least in a solo raid setting. Maybe in like a different raid setting, fine, okay. And again, this is like kind of best case because yeah, it's like Summer Bernice. She does do decent damage, but this is as close to a solo DPS carry as I could think of. That is not the Miranda comp. So yeah, I mean, these are the results right there. All right, so after my incredibly scuffed testing, I've concluded that in some cases she's gonna be like around the same as Bunny Aid, maybe a little bit worse in some cases, and maybe some places a little bit better depending on her comps. A lot of her really good comps though at the moment do use a lot of meta units that you might want in teams that are not with her. Because At the moment, I think you want to use like Fast and Anchor over her with things like Neon because again, like I said, you want to bring like Librario with Neo Neon. So it does seem like her best slotting is going to be the Miranda comp because in that comp you have a hyper carry where you have one unit that is going to be doing the majority of your damage, and the other one is just with like burst gen and stuff like that. So it's easier to line up your skill 2 um, buffs with that other unit that's going to be doing all the damage for that. Might need a little bit of like slight manual control to maximize the time you have with that buff, especially if you are doing this with like a burst skill that has a huge burst at the start. So maybe like Cinderella, something like that. Just really depends on how you're doing it. But that is what it seems like he is going to be used for, at least for the time being. Obviously, Rika is coming out soon, so we'll have to see her kit and how she matches up with Mint 2. But anyway, if you found this video helpful or just want to support me, um, a subscription would be greatly appreciated. Like, comment on what you think about Mint. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. Been a good one. Till next time.